Lepo pozdravljeni. Naša tokratna gostja je gospa, je ženska, katere življenjska zgodba ni le izjemna, ampak je tudi pričanje o milosti, odrešenju in pogumu. Z nami je gospa Patricia Sandoval. Patricia, welcome to Slovenia and welcome to the Exodus television. So let's first discuss, where do you come from? Where do you live?
I was born in California in the United States, but my family, my parents are from Mexico, so I'm Mexican-American. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for having me here as well.
Okay, so your book is quite popular among the anti-abortion movement people. It's called Transfigured, and it's translated in Slovenian.
Right, it's translated in various countries around the world, and it took 8 years to write that book, but for the glory of God, many women chose life, and many men and women that couldn't forgive themselves after having an abortion found God's mercy by reading the book.
So what's your story?
My story is I grew up in a beautiful family. We didn't practice our Catholic faith. We didn't pray as a family, and Jesus Christ was never the king of our home, our hearts. And when I was a young girl, the abortion industry came to my school. When I was in the 6th grade, I was 12 years old. And they gave us a class on sexual education. I never received any type of education or formation at home because my parents never received it when they were kids. So your parents can't give you something that they themselves don't have. My parents never taught me on virtues, so I didn't know that God created me to become a saint. I didn't know what the virtue of chastity and purity was as a child. And I didn't know the sacredness of matrimony and the beauty of sexuality, because sexuality is not something to be ashamed of. It's something very beautiful that God created for marriage and for the fruit of that to be children. So I was educated by the abortion industry at school on sex, and it was a complete distorted formation. And I say that I was a victim of abortion and their lies for the first time when I was 12 years old. And I feel that the abortion industry also stained my purity. You know, as a young girl, I didn't know anything about sex. So what we were taught in this class was that masturbation was something very good and healthy, that we should start exploring and experimenting as little kids, our sexuality. I was taught that you can be attracted to men or women, it didn't matter. I was taught by an abortionist that came to my school that life was not, there was no life at the moment of conception. And a woman that is in their 2nd trimester, that's when life was formed. That's when the child in the womb was an actual person. Before the 2nd trimester, it was just a clump of cells.
In pregnancy.
In pregnancy, mm-hmm. Yes, thank you. That it was just a clump of cells, that it wasn't a person. And they told us that if you ever find yourself in a crisis, if you're ever pregnant, young ladies, the abortion is a solution, it's the way out, and we can help you. We can take care of that problem. We will never tell your parents. It is your right that you keep your abortion private. And I remember them telling the young men in our classroom, if your partner wants to have an abortion, it's her body, it's her choice. You have no right or voice or authority over that decision. So right then and there, they were basically indoctrinating us. And I thought that true love was sex. You know, they brought condoms into our school. They brought a banana, and they showed us how to practice being responsible, practice safe sex with condoms and a banana. They taught us the use of birth control methods. So when I walked out of school that day at 12 years old, I was already pro-choice. And I thought that love was sex, that when I found a boyfriend, that's how I showed that I loved him. And I didn't know that sacrificing and waiting until marriage was actually true love. And, you know, things were very bad with my parents in 1992 when I was 12, that same year. Mm-hmm. My mother got very involved in New Age. So my mom was doing a lot of witchcraft and evil rituals. My sister and I experimented with the Ouija board. My mother did tarot card readings and palm readings, and evil went into our house because we opened up the door to evil, and it ruined my parents' marriage. I feel like when you're playing games with the demonic, it ruins a whole family. And one day my mother left. She packed up her bags and said, I don't want to be married. And she felt oppressed being a housewife. So society tells women that if you're not successful and working and traveling the world, or you have a business, if you're home and you're cooking and cleaning, you're not doing anything with your life. You're wasting your life. Mm-hmm. And my mother felt that being a housewife and cooking and cleaning all day, she was a slave, and she felt oppressed. So she said, I want to leave and I want to start living my life, and I want to be somebody.
And that was also very problematic for you as a young girl, wasn't that?
It hurt me because I felt abandoned by my mother, and I didn't understand as a child why she left. So I grew up very rebellious, and I've worked with teenagers around the world, teenagers that want to commit suicide.
Today you work with them?
Yes. Mm-hmm. I've been doing this for 20 years. Mm-hmm. I've worked with teenagers that are addicted to pornography, drugs, and when I get to the root of their problem, it's either they weren't loved or they felt abandoned by their parents. Mm-hmm. And even if they grew up with their parents, they just don't feel loved by them. And the root of that, a child being rebellious and a child that is hurt, is either a mother or father wound. Mm-hmm. And I was very angry at my mom, and I was very rebellious. And the values I had in my heart as a child was being rich. I just wanted to be rich and famous. I didn't have God. And I was a very good student, straight A's. And, I met my first boyfriend when I was a teenager, 19 years old. And I thought sex and love were the same thing. So we started to practice safe sex, what I learned from school. And the abortion industry does this. It's a trap. They know that parents aren't educating their children on sexuality, on the truth. So they say, we will be their sexual educators. Why? Because they know that if children start having sex, they know that birth control methods, they're not effective, they fail. They know that they will have future abortion patients. Mm-hmm.
And you yourself had 3 abortions.
I had 3 abortions, and that's what happened. So I started practicing safe sex. It's set up to fail. I was pregnant, not once, but 3 times. And to me, it was a crisis. To me, it was what my mother left. 19 years old, pregnant, I'm gonna be now a domestic wife, a slave, a nobody. And I thought and I believed that a child killed your dreams. So I had 3 abortions. And before each one, I was lied to. I was never told about the effects of abortion. I was never told about post-abortion syndrome. I was never told I would suffer mentally, emotionally, physically after each abortion. And pretty much I was suicidal. I had eating disorders. I had emotional roller coasters. I would cry and scream at everything. And I never understood what was happening, what was wrong with me. I never connected it to my abortions. And not only that, my partner, my boyfriend, was suffering post-abortion syndrome as well, because men also suffer after abortion.
And you didn't tell him about all the abortions?
I didn't tell him about the first 2. I lied to him. The last one, he went with me, and he didn't want to go. I remember him telling me, I want to be a father. What about my rights? What about what I want? And I felt that he was trying to take my right and my authority away. And I said, I don't care what you think. It's my body, my choice. You have no say. So I forced him to go with me to that abortion. Mm-hmm. And he also suffered the effects. He got involved with drugs and alcohol. Men usually suffer in a different way than women. Usually they go into addiction more than women. Mm-hmm. And we both were suffering post-abortion syndrome after 3 abortions.
You also used drugs, didn't you?
But this was after I worked for the abortion industry.
Okay.
Yeah, so I went to work for Planned Parenthood. Mm-hmm. It is the largest abortion industry in the United States and world. They have clinics and centers throughout the world. So I went to work for them because I thought they were for women. Mm-hmm. I thought they were for the youth, and I wanted to help women. But when I worked behind the doors of Planned Parenthood, I saw the truth about abortion.
What is the truth?
The truth is that they lie, they deceive, they don't care about women, they don't care about motherhood. And I was hired illegally as a nurse. I was never a nurse. I never went to nursing school They needed my Spanish because most of the women that have abortions in the United States are Hispanic that don't speak English. So they desperately needed my Spanish to help women have abortions. And when I had to assist the first abortion, when I stood behind the abortionist, first of all, I noticed how unsafe it is. The abortionist can't see what he's doing inside the womb. And he's got a table of very dangerous instruments. And he's got a vacuum, a big machine that's powerful, and it's literally like a vacuum. The first thing I noticed is he can't see what he's doing in the womb.
So there's no ultrasound?
They don't. They don't do an ultrasound. Most of them don't. And so they don't know if they're perforating the womb, damaging the womb. That's why many women die after an abortion. So many women do die. That's why many women have perforated wombs. And that's why many women can't have kids after an abortion, because it's a blind man's surgery. And I had to be the abortionist eyes. I had to make sure that he got everything out. So when I was escorted to a hidden room behind the clinic, I believed and I thought when they put everything that came out of the bag from the machine, everything that came out of her womb, I had to grab the bag, go to a room, and I had to empty the contents out in a big glass dish. And I thought I was going to see a sack of tissue, because that's what I was told before my 3 abortions. But to my reality and to my shock, there was a baby in pieces in that plate. And I had to find 5 body parts. I found 2 little hands, 2 little legs, and I found a head. And the first thing I noticed on the hand, when it was held up to the light with tweezers, were the fingerprints of that baby. This baby was 3 months gestation, and it was completely formed. And I remember seeing the fingerprints and thinking to myself, the fingerprints identify us as irrepeatable human beings, and it gives us our identity as people. And I will never forget the expression on that baby's face when I saw the head held up to the light. That baby was in agony. That baby was suffering. That baby's mouth was wide open because this baby was screaming in silence and crying, and nobody can hear his voice.
And then you suffered after working in such a clinic?
Yes, I was horrified. Women fainted. Women were dragged down the halls. Women bled to death. It was hell on earth, what I witnessed behind the doors. And I wasn't there very long. And I suffered, knowing that not only did I kill my children, but unknowingly, I was also part of killing other people's children. And I felt like a murderer for the first time in my life. And I felt like trash. So I started to use drugs to heal my pain. I didn't know God. And I was so addicted to drugs that I lost everything. I lost my soul, my house, everything. And I was a homeless person on the street for 3 years, addicted to drugs and suffering. I pulled out all my hair, and I didn't eat. I looked like a skeleton, basically. I had bones. I was a dead woman walking. And one day I was on the streets of California, and I thought I was going to die because I hadn't eaten anything in 5 days. And I started to cry out to God. I actually felt the presence of God. I felt God the Father looking down at me with pity on my soul. And I cried out to him, and I said, I don't know you, but I know that you exist. I had a beautiful family, a beautiful life, and I ruined my life because of the choices I've made. Please forgive me. And at that very moment, I asked for forgiveness. A young waitress ran out of a restaurant. She held me in her arms, and she looked at me, and she said, Jesus loves you. I saw you crying through the window of that restaurant on the corner. I started to pray for you, and God told me that he will never abandon you, and that everything that you've done in your life, he forgives you. And that young girl, her name is Bonnie, after 3 years of being lost and never looking for my family, she took me back home. And when she took me home, I reconciled with my mother. And my mother came back to the Catholic faith when I was missing. And my mother was on her knees for 3 years in front of the Blessed Sacrament, praying for my soul. And it is truly God's divine mercy. It's God who is the King of mercy. And it's my mother's prayers that saved my life.
So why, Patricia, is all this evil happening? Why do we kill children?
Because it's the sacrifice of children, the innocence of purity of children, because they most reflect God. The presence of God lives in children because they're not sinful yet. The devil can't stand the innocence and purity of a child. So the devil can't kill the child Jesus. So he indirectly kills the child Jesus through babies, through humanity. And killing and sacrificing a child gives energy and fuel and to the evil one. The root of all evil in our countries is abortion. Saint Mother Teresa of Calcutta said, there will never be peace in the world until there's peace in the womb. The root of all evil is abortion. She would say this.
Mm-hmm. Now you are blessed to have 2 children.
Yes.
And a husband. He supports you very well, very much.
Very much.
Yeah. So you are also in front of the pro-life movement.
Yes.
What do you fight for?
I fight for truth. I fight for women to know the real rights. That abortion is not a solution. That people can support her and her child. That she is loved. That no matter the situation that baby was conceived, even in rape, even in incest, even in the worst conditions, that baby is a gift from God. And that she can have a beautiful life next to her child. Abortion will ruin her life, and it will take the life of her child. But that there are other options, and that God is with her, and that she can do it. She can do it next to her child. So I want women to know that there are other options, and I want the young kids to know what truth is about abortion as well. You know, our society and our countries are blinded by the evil one. In the Bible it says, Jesus says, there will be a time when good is bad and bad is good. And I feel like today, a lot of young kids, especially the ones that go to university, they're indoctrinated with lies. They don't know what truth is. They don't know what the good is. And they believe that evil is good. So if I can prevent a woman from having an abortion, or if I can just help a young child, a young teenager know what truth is and follow God, then everything is worth it for me. Mm-hmm. And I want to do reparation for what I've done.
And you met some of the children who were saved.
Yes. I travel. I've done this for 20 years, like I mentioned. I've traveled to many countries around the world. And I've spoken my story. And there were young girls that were in the crowd that were pregnant and they were about to have an abortion. Mm-hmm. And they chose life. Praise God, because of God, not because of me, but because of God. And when I would return to the country, I was able to hold a lot of those children in my arms.
So what did you feel?
God's divine power and mercy. You know, I remember the first little boy I held in my arms. He was a couple months old, and he smiled at me. And I realized something so big. Not only did God save this child's life, but maybe one day this little boy can be a father, a grandfather, his whole generation was saved. Mm-hmm. And I realized that the pro-life movement is not just about saving a life, it's about saving generations. It's very powerful. One abortion takes away a life and a whole generation. Mm-hmm. But when one life is spared and saved, thousands of lives are saved because of that one life.
How difficult it is in the United States to be a pro-life, in pro-life movement and pro-life spokesman?
It's difficult around the world because a lot of people don't agree with you. And so you run against the current, right? You run against what society says. Society says abortion is good for women. Abortion's the solution. But you run against the world. And so you do confront people that are angry with you. You confront people that humiliate you and they laugh at you. But it is a great sign that you're on the right path. Because Jesus said, if the world hated me, they will hate you. But have peace and have joy because I have conquered the world. So what we know as pro-lifers and as Catholics is that the victory is God's. We know who wins at the end. We're called to be faithful. Me, I'm not worried about what people think of me or how they react. I'm worried about being faithful and about planting seeds. The result is up to God, not to me.
But what do they think of you and what do they say?
So at the beginning of my ministry, I was the first pro-life speaker in all of Latin America and Spain to share my story in Spanish. So people had never heard my story, and it was very shocking, even Catholic and Christians. So a lot of people would tell me at the beginning, you're going to go to hell. God is only merciful when someone has one abortion, but you've had 3. You know, you're going to hell, you're condemned. And it was difficult. There was times where I wanted to give up. There's times where I would go to God, And I'd go to the altar and say, Jesus, I don't have to do this. I can stop. I can be forgiven by you and accept that. And I can be normal, you know, and there's times I wanted to give up. But I want to become a saint, you know, and I realized that our crown of glory is not on earth. When we fight for the truth and gospel, our grand reward is in heaven. Mm-hmm. And we need to be courageous and we need to persevere. You know, we need to be strong, especially during these times. These times are not easy. There's so much evil and lies, even in politics, you know, and we have to be very courageous during this time.
What would you advise women who had an abortion? Do you personally still have a contact with your 3 children that were aborted, or how is it?
When I went to heal my abortions, I went to a healing retreat, and Saturday evening during prayer, God gave me the grace. I saw my 3 aborted children. And when I closed my eyes and I was praying, God